Yeah. What? Do you have a second to talk about our weather savior, NOAA? No. I really need to work on that sales pitch. Weather radios? They're pretty important. So if you couldn't tell by that skit in the beginning, that's how I imagine a lot of people are about weather radios in general when the topic is brought up. I mean, it's a mundane topic. Who thinks about these in day-to-day life? Probably not many people. Which makes sense, because there's a device that we have in all of our homes that is very similar to these. And that device is pictured right up here on my ceiling. How many people really think about a smoke detector day to day? I'm going to take a stab at it and say not too many people, which is very interesting because according to the SCOA, there's actually 84% of households that have at least one functioning smoke alarm or CO2 alarm, which is basically all houses. However, the statistic for NOAA weather radios is so grim that barely 10% of households have them, because 90% of households don't have this product, even though it's recommended by DHS and FEMA. So that's already a bit worrisome. So I'm going to try to do my damnedest to convince you that you need a NOAA weather radio. And let me be the first to say, I promise it's interesting and I promise it's worth the investment. What investment is it? About 40 bucks. That's it. It's not that much. Because really buying one of these doesn't just come down to you needing to listen to the weather 24/7. It comes down to keeping you and your family safe. And sure, I already hear you talking. I already got a phone. What could I possibly need a weather radio for? It just seems redundant. And you're right. NOAA weather radios are redundant, but they're redundant for a reason. Earlier this year, we had some very bad severe weather come through and it knocked out our power. And when it did that, it knocked out our internet and it knocked out our cell service. We could not send any texts, could not get any calls, and we couldn't browse the internet. Essentially, our connection to the outside world was completely severed by this storm. The only way we were able to get any information whatsoever about the weather was because we had a NOAA weather radio. Sure, it's anecdotal, but this is a very common thing throughout the entire United States. Cell phones are great, and TVs and all that stuff are wonderful, but they just aren't enough. Having a dedicated device that is strictly for weather and other hazards is super important. Because remember, it's called a NOAA All Hazards Radio for a reason. They do more than just weather, even though that's what's explicitly listed. These things can do tons of different alerts. Civil danger warnings, law enforcement warnings, blue alerts, amber alerts. It really goes on. Anything that pertains to your local area that gets sent out over radio, you will be notified of. So yes, weather is their specialty, but they do so much more than weather. But again, you keep asking, why? Why should I get one? It just seems like, I don't know, just another thing I have to keep track of. I've already got enough electronic stuff in my house. This just seems like super complicated and honestly not worth my time. And normally I would agree with you. But like I said, these can just sit in a corner. You don't even have to look at them. As a matter of fact, here is the one inside of my parents' house right now. It sits in a corner and isn't used unless an event happens. But see, that's the nice thing about these. You don't have to touch them. They do everything on their own. It just sits in the corner and only lets you know when something happens. The way these things work is they constantly listen to the National Weather Service. Even when they're not playing something, they're still constantly listening. When it hears an alert go out over the radio's audio, it will immediately let you know. A light on it will flash up, it'll make a siren noise, and it will flip to the National Weather Service to tell you exactly what the emergency is in real time. And in real time is a very big selling feature because earlier this morning, as I'm recording this video, we got several severe thunderstorm warnings. I had my phone ready to go, and it sent them out 3 to 5 minutes later, depending on the alert. 3 to 5 minutes doesn't sound so bad for a severe thunderstorm warning, but imagine if that was a tornado in the middle of the night. 3 to 5 minutes is a long time. If you've been in a tornado, you know how long those minutes are. They feel like an eternity. And again, here's an actual photo of me when we were under a tornado warning and I was in the basement with my NOAA weather radio. All the lights are illuminated because we had so many alerts. So suffice it to say, our phones are great, they work and all that stuff, but they're not so reliable, especially during the middle of the night. Now, our phones do get wireless emergency alerts pictured here, the WEA system, but it's just not that reliable. You need to have cell service, you need to have your phone on, and it needs to be charged. Sometimes, you forget to plug in your phone one night, or you just happen to be out in the country and you don't got cell service. Happens to all of us. But guess what you're not gonna get? A notification. So what I'm trying to get at is that NOAA weather radios are a completely inobtrusive way to make weather and local emergency notifications go through to you reliably, safely, and efficiently. Because here's the thing, we don't know when severe weather is going to strike. It could be during the middle of the day, so you can see it. It could be during dusk and evening where it's harder to see it. Or it could be at 3 in the morning when you're asleep. You need something to keep you safe and will wake you up. And these NOAA weather radios will alert you to that way better than any cell phone ever could, especially if you keep yours on mute a lot of the time. Heck, some smartphones have the ability to turn off those weather alerts entirely so they don't even go to you. Do you even know if your phone is getting weather alerts? When's the last time you saw one? Be honest with yourself. I don't mean to be mean, but for what little investment these radios can be, they are lifesavers, and it's foolish to not have one. I mean, think about it. You spend 40 bucks, 45 bucks one day, and you're set. These things don't have a subscription. You don't need to pay to get alerts on these. It just uses the official National Weather Service radio stations. That means it's just gonna keep working. There's nothing you have to do to it. You don't have to add something else to the credit card bill, folks. In a time where everything is a subscription, something that's just entirely free just seems like an absolute no-brainer to me. So hopefully with just that quick little introduction to what these actually are and what they do, you at least have a better understanding as to why there are so many people that recommend these things. And in the spirit of this, I'm going to hope that maybe you at least see why people beg you to get one of these. They're cheap, they're easy to set up, and they just sit in a corner until they're used. And in the spirit of this whole ordeal, we are actually going to be setting up a Midland WR-120, which is exactly what the model of this radio is. Probably one of the most common weather radios. As a matter of fact, I could go to Hy-Vee right now and buy one of these. But you can also get them on Amazon too, so they're pretty easy to get. So I'm gonna clear off a little space here and we're gonna set one up step by step. So just in case you don't really know what you're doing, that's okay. I do, and I'll help you. I'm gonna be doing my best to go over everything that you get inside of the box and how to set it up so that way you can just put it in a corner, no frills, no compromises, and just set it and forget it. Because I know that is exactly what everyone wants to do with this. So first, let's open it up. When you open it up, you're gonna see the weather radio right here, as well as a secondary box. This contains the power cord, so you're gonna wanna keep that. Inside of here is going to be your NOAA weather radio. You're simply just gonna wanna take the tape off of it, and it'll slide right out. Another thing in the box that you're going to wanna keep is the manual. This manual is supremely important because it has some good information about how the radio works and as well as any questions you may have. Now you can ask them down in the comments section below. I will try to do my best to get back to all of you that do comment. So if you have any questions, you can comment. It just may take me a little bit to get back to you. And then there is one more thing that you will get in the box. It's just this little handout here. It's not really anything all that like revolutionary. I just throw it away personally. And that's it. That's all you get in the box. But to be honest, that's really all you're going to need. So what you're going to want to do next is take out your power cord. You can just open up the box and take it out. Now, what's nice about these radios is they do have a compartment for AA batteries. So that way, when the power goes out, these will continue to work. And that is something that you should definitely fill up. I won't be filling it up in this video just because I don't need to for this one. I've already got one over here. But you should do that as well. It only takes 3 and it just lasts for ages. So what you're going to want to do next is take your power adapter here. You're just going to take the little twist tie off, stretch it out, and we're going to go plug it in. Once you've gotten your power connector plugged in, you're going to want to plug it into the back of the radio, and you're going to want to plug it in to right here where it says power. And once you do that, the radio is going to boot up. As you can see, it says welcome. Now the first thing it's going to have you do is set your language. So we're going to zoom in and I'll show you how to do that. So setting your language is easy. You just want to click on the select button and you can use these buttons to scroll up and down. So we got Spanish, it'll default to English here, but we got French, Spanish, and English native on the radios. When you're on English, you want to click on select. Now for location. Setting your location can be a bit difficult on some radios. But on this one, it's really, really easy. You just click on select, and you'll see any, single, and multiple. I prefer doing multiple. Now the reason why I do that is because I live on the edge of a county. I actually have the county above me as well put into the radio. So if you're in the middle of a county, you can just put single, but I would recommend putting in at least 2 if you're on the edge. So I'm going to click on multiple. And you'll see, it'll say empty. You can use the buttons to see all the selection areas. You'll want to click on select on an empty one. It'll first ask you the country. So you can actually set US and Canada, but it'll default to the United States. So you want to click on select. Now this is where you get to select your state. Now I personally live in Iowa. So I'm going to select Iowa. You'll click on select. Now this is where you get to select your counties. So one of the counties I'm going to set in here is going to be Webster County. So you click on select, and that's it. Your county is now selected. It's now in here. Now, since I do have 2 counties, I'm going to go to number 2, USA, Iowa. And we'll set in, what's another county we can set in here? Let's do Humboldt County. And there we go. That's set. So once you have your county set, you can click on menu. And now it'll ask you to set the time. So you click on select. And you'll see that the 12 is blinking here. Moving up moves it up, and moving down moves it down. And you press these buttons and it moves back and forth. And it is 12:53 p.m. right now. So we're going to select that. So you'll click on select. Now the channel. This is entirely dependent on where you live. Now, one way you can do it is go through and just listen. The radio will pick up on the frequencies. However, in the description, I've put the official National Weather Service website where you can find your nearest transmitter. All you need is your county or your zip code, and it'll tell you where your nearest transmitter is and what channel it's on. However, if you don't have any time for that, you still can search for it manually, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So you click on select. This is static, and you'll see the number 4 and then a number here. This is the frequency it's transmitting at. There are 7 channels. So we're on number 4. If I go up, we go to number 5. You'll still hear nothing. 6, you'll still hear nothing. 7, you'll still hear nothing. 3, I still hear nothing. 2, I still don't hear anything. 1. Now I hear my local National Weather Service office. So once you have that selected and you can hear the voice of the National Weather Service, Paul, coming over, you just click on select. It'll say setup done. And that's it. You're done. See, I told you it was entirely painless. And that's it. So now it's just going to continually listen to the National Weather Service, and you're done. Now, of course, I'm not going to leave you here. I will go over all the settings in here so you get a good idea as to what they do, so you don't have to read the manual on them. But if that's all you came to do is just to set it up, you're done. The default settings on these are perfectly adequate for alerting you. Now, there are additional settings you can change in here, and I would recommend that you do. But if that's all you need is just for it to be set up and get alerts, you're good. One thing to keep in mind is National Weather Service offices do tests every week of your NOAA weather radio. Now, depending on the office that you have in your area, they may do 1 or 2 tests on Wednesday, because typically Wednesday is the test day for these radios. They typically test between 10 a.m. and noon on Wednesdays. Now, where I live, my National Weather Service office tests twice on Wednesdays, once at 11 a.m. and once at 7 p.m. When that test comes through, this light that says advisory will light up yellow, and it will scroll across the screen, required weekly test. Now, do note, there will be no audible siren during this test. You can enable a siren for the weekly test, but by default, it will be a silent test. So the advisory light will light up and will scroll across the screen, required weekly test, for 15 minutes after the alert is issued. After those 15 minutes, there will be no message across the top here, just the time, and the advisory light will go out. So just keep that in mind, that they do test these every week. And I know that there will be a couple people probably ask about this in the comments as well. If your weather radio has not received a weekly test signal from the National Weather Service in 10 days, your lights across here will flicker, and it'll probably say no reception across the top. So if you get that error where it says check reception across here, all you really need to do is go to the side of the radio and see the switch here. You're going to want to switch it to off, and then you're going to want to switch it back on. And you'll see how important it says to keep that on, and you should. Because if that's off, you are not going to get any alerts whatsoever from the National Weather Service. Make sure that that's on. Let's go in and set the radio up some more. So what you're going to want to do is click on the menu button. And now we're in the menu. We'll use our up and down arrows to go back and forth here. You'll see it says set time. So this allows you to set the time of your radio, which is supremely important, because it'll actually use the time in order to set alerts to expire. So when these alerts get sent out, they have a set time that they'll be used. Once that time that it will expire is met on here, it will remove the alert. So it's very, very important you have your time set correctly. Next is set events. Now in here, we'll click select. It'll have all default, edit events, all on, and all off. I would recommend you keep all default if you don't know what you're doing, because all default will have all the primary alerts that you need, as well as some more obscure but still useful alerts like flood warnings and child abduction emergencies, aka Amber alerts, that kind of thing. So I would recommend you keep this on. If you're in here to go back, you just click on menu and you're back to this. So next we're going to want to do backlight. So depending on where this radio is, you can have the backlight on normal, which means it'll stay on, and then after a short time, it'll go dim. Or you can have it off completely, or you can have it on totally. I'm going to keep it on for the remainder of this video so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Next is your option to set the channel. So if by any chance you want to change the channel on it, you can just click on select, and it'll bring you back to here where you can scroll through and set the channel. Once you have it set to the channel you want, you click on select, and it's set. Next is the alert test function. So when you click on select, it's going to get really loud. This is going to test the alert siren. So I'm actually going to cover it up so it doesn't completely blow your guys' eardrums out, but you click on select, and it tests the alert function. So if you hear that alert come through, you should be getting alerts. Next is alert volume. You click on select, and you'll see it shows as high volume. You can actually change how loud it is by doing medium volume and low volume. So my main one here is actually set to low volume, but that's because I have several weather radios. I would recommend you keep it on high volume because when it sends out an alert, it's very important that you pay attention. And that is what it is set to by default. So just keep it on high volume. However, if this is in your bedroom or something like that, maybe you might turn it down a little bit if it's sitting on your bedside. But I'm going to guess that most people are going to put these in their living rooms or in their kitchens. So if that's the case, keep it on high volume. So that way, across the house, you can hear it. So you click on select. And now we're back to here. And then the next one here is alert type. So after alert volume, it's alert type. Click on select. This is going to allow you to change what the radio will do when it receives an alert. By default, it will be on voice. What voice is when it gets an alert, the siren will sound for 8 seconds. After those 8 seconds of the siren sounding, it will switch automatically to the National Weather Service, where you will hear heat index values up to 100 early until midnight. You will hear Paul, the voice of the National Weather Service, announce what the alert is. This is the best one by default because it's completely touchless. It just alerts you and goes right to the National Weather Service. I would recommend you leave it on voice. So depending on where your weather radio is, it might be beneficial to turn it to tone. What tone does is the siren will blare for 3 minutes non-stop. So if your weather radio is in a place where it's particularly loud, or you just want the siren to go off longer so it'll get your attention so you have time to get up to it, put it on tone. This will sound the alarm for 3 minutes. Once 3 minutes is up, it's not going to turn to the National Weather Service, but for those 3 minutes, it'll continue to blare the alarm until you come over and click the big button. The last one is display. This is a completely silent mode. It will still receive the alerts. It'll populate the lights as well as show across the screen what the alert is. However, it will not make any audible noise whatsoever. This is the option I recommend the least. There is one use I have for this display, and that is if you have this in an office. I personally, in my office at work, have a NOAA weather radio. With my weather radio in my office, what I did is I put it on display, but I have an external strobe light that will beep at me constantly. It'll go boop, 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 and it'll strobe a red light at me telling me that there's an alert. So that way it doesn't annoy the people around me, but I still get that immediate alert. That's one of the only few reasons I would put it on display. So we're gonna leave it on voice. And then we're back to setting our location, which once again, you can click on select and you can change it to any, which means it'll go off for all counties. Multiple, which means it'll only go off for the counties you set. And single, which means it'll only go off for one county that you can set. I recommend multiple because if you live on the edge, you need to know about the county above you as well. And as you can see, we click on select and it goes here. Click on menu to go back. And then you can also set your language again. We will leave it on English for this video. And then we have set alarm. This can also be used as an alarm clock. So if you click on select, you can move over to on, and you'll see a little icon pop up there in the corner. You'll click on select, and now you can set the time for the alarm. I personally do not use the alarm function, so I will be keeping it off. However, you may find the alarm function useful. And that's it. We get back to set time, and once you're done in the settings, you click on menu. It'll say saving, and then we're right back here to the main screen. What you've been seeing flashing up here in the corner is the battery indicator icon. So if your batteries are low or there are no batteries in here whatsoever, it'll blink here to let you know to replace your batteries. I personally recommend replacing your batteries in here every year or so. Now, because I don't see many people losing power on these very often. I would recommend after about a day of no power, I would look for new batteries just in case. However, that's way overkill for these kinds of things. They don't use a whole bunch of battery power, but I'd say every year, just like your smoke alarm batteries, give them a replace. All you do to listen to the weather, you press the big button. When you're done listening to the weather, you press it again. It's really that easy. Now, I know what you're thinking. What would it be like if this went off? And I'm going to show you. I'm going to activate this radio myself with a real alert, so that way you can see exactly what the alarm is going to sound like and how it's going to look. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to issue a fake alert so that way you can see what it will look like. So I brought the antenna closer over to me, and I'm going to show you exactly what the alert would sound like if a real one got issued. So I'm going to activate the weather radio with the Child Abduction Emergency or Amber Alert function.
This is a test. This is a test. This is a test of the NOAA Weather Radio All Hazards Public Warning System. This is a test of your specific area message encoding S.A.M.E. NOAA Weather Alert Radio using the Child Abduction Emergency Event Code. This is only a test. Had this been an actual child abduction emergency, official instructions and emergency information from the National Weather Service would have followed the S.A.M.E. header and attention tones you just heard. Again, this is only a test. No severe weather or life-threatening conditions are occurring at this time. The successful reception of this message and the associated alert tones confirms that your NOAA Weather Alert radio is functioning correctly and will properly notify you of future severe weather or emergency alerts issued by the National Weather Service. This concludes this test of the NOAA Weather Radio All Hazard System. This audio transmission will now cease.
Just like that. That is all that will happen. And when it hears that last bit of the tone, it will immediately shut itself off. So you will only hear the alert. If you wanted to hear more, you could click on the button again and continue to listen. So that is what an advisory would look like. Now let's move on to the watches. We will do a severe thunderstorm watch. Now do note, the watch light will illuminate, but the advisory light will continue to be illuminated. If there are multiple alerts going on that are different severities, the lights will continue to be illuminated as long as the alert is still active. So let's go forward with a severe thunderstorm watch and see what we get.
This is a test. This is a test. This is a test of the NOAA Weather Radio All Hazards Public Warning System. This is a test of your specific area message encoding S.A.M.E. NOAA Weather Alert Radio using the Severe Thunderstorm Watch event code. This is only a test. Had this been an actual severe thunderstorm watch, official instructions and emergency information from the National Weather Service would have followed the S.A.M.E. header and attention tones you just heard. Again, this is only a test.
So that was a severe thunderstorm watch. And that's probably the one that you're going to get a decent amount of the time. However, there is one that is super important that you have. Now here we get a lot of tornadoes. So that is going to be the test that I'm going to be doing now. This is going to be the tornado warning event code.
This is a test. This is a test. This is a test of the NOAA Weather Radio All Hazards Public Warning System. This is a test of your specific area message encoding S.A.M.E. NOAA Weather Alert Radio using the Tornado Warning event code. This is only a test. Had this been an actual tornado warning, official instructions and emergency information from the National Weather Service would have followed the S.A.M.E. header and attention tones you just heard. Again, this is only a test. No severe weather or life-threatening conditions are occurring at this time.
And that's it. That's what your NOAA weather radio would look like. Now, as you can see, all lights are illuminated. If there are active alerts and you want to view them, you can do up and down on the buttons here. By pressing up, it'll show you and flash the light of the relevant alert. So it says tornado warning, therefore the warning light is flashing. If I go down, we'll see severe thunderstorm watch, and the watch light will flash. And we go down one more time, and we'll see child abduction emergency or Amber Alert, and the advisory light will flash. And once you're done viewing them, you click on menu and you go right back to here. And same thing if you want to go back and view them once more, you can use the arrow keys to go up and down on them. And that's it. That is your NOAA weather radio, all set up and ready to go. I have left out a decent information in this video about how the emergency alert system works and how all of that works, because frankly, that doesn't really matter for this video. All that you need to know is how to set up these so that way you will receive the alerts. I will now be going into a little bit more detail as to how these radios work for those that are specifically interested in how these work. However, it's not required that you know how the back end works. So the way that these radios work is when the National Weather Service sends out any alerts whatsoever, it will send them out over the Emergency Alert System, or the EAS. The weather radio is constantly listening for the 3 harsh tones you hear at the beginning called SAME headers, or Specific Area Message Encoding headers. Those headers actually contain vital information about who sent the alert, what alert it is, how long it lasts, who it's for. What these radios do is they listen to that, decode it, and show you on screen what the alert is. And for the alert duration, it will keep it illuminated. Normally, 15 minutes to an hour is about how long most events will last, but some, like watches, for example, can last for hours. So as long as one of these lights is illuminated, the alert is still technically active. So these will constantly listen for those SAME headers, Specific Area Messaging Encoding headers. So when it hears those SAME headers, those are data bursts, which basically work the exact same way as dial-up did back in the day. All it is essentially computer data that can be audibly heard. Again, very similar to how dial-up used to work back in the day. So that's a good way of looking at how the emergency alert system works. And it's designed to be completely passive to the end user. All it is just supposed to be a little thing, sits here in the corner with its little antenna up, and the second it hears an alert, and of course, there are plenty of different alerts that will go over the National Weather Service. Some are weather related, some are not weather related, some are local, some are national. That's all, well and good and whatnot, but be rest assured, everything will go off normally as intended. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for tuning in to my video to learn about weather radios and why they are so vitally important to keep yourself and your community safe. I hope now you see all the different use cases for these, not just through weather, but also for local emergencies. And if there's somebody else that you know that could use one of these, recommend this video to them. Show them it's not actually that hard to set one of these up, and it's super straightforward. I thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.